Another Bright Spot podcast.
Another bright spot.
Another bright spot.
Another Bright Spot. podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Another Bright Spark podcast. I'm Neale Mighall and my guest today is board veteran John Zafar. John, welcome.
Hi, Neil.
I say board veteran, it's more like board superhero. I've done some research and the number of companies and organisations that you've worked for and that you've gone into mentoring, it's quite extensive, 25 years plus, without
Yes.
betraying your age, obviously.
Yeah, there's a range of emotions that come to mind with that sentence. Well, one is it makes me sound as if I can't commit to a relationship. Two, the word veteran makes me feel very old. And then when you say 25 years, I definitely
Puts the nail into the
feel
coffin.
really old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but thank you. Yeah.
I mean,
it's a long time.
the organisations that you sit on boards that you've gone through, certainly in the recent years, are profit for purpose and organisations that make a difference. I read an interview that you felt work was an inclusive place. DEI is a big thing, and it comes from childhood. Are you happy to share that story?
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you. Blimey, I'm getting into the emotional stuff straight away.
It's a hard-hitting podcast.
Can I make you cry?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
It's very straightforward. But inclusion, yeah, massively important to me. How that came about to become chairman of Inclusive Employers. So just a bit of background on that first.
Please.
Inclusive Employers is the largest training and consulting company in the inclusion space in Europe, and it was acquired by Palatine Private Equity's Impact Fund, and that's a fund that invests in companies where it is profit for purpose. I'd known Palatine for 15 years, and unbeknownst to me, my name was put forward as somebody they thought might be a good chair for the business. And it was one of those situations where the founders were staying on for about a year. So the chair's role was to work with founders who'd never worked with PE before, and then also to help them define the successor, a leader for the company.
Sure.
All of which we did. But firstly, to be asked to be on the shortlist was a surprise, and then to actually be offered the role was an honour, really.
Of course.
And everybody in Inclusive Employers has some form of lived experience of exclusion, and that could be, gender related. It could be other aspects of protected characters.
Sexual orientation, or whatever.
Absolutely. And in my case, so my name is Persian by origin, apparently, which is now Iran and Iraq, some time ago. And my father was born in India. And my mother was English, Irish, and German. They're both sadly passed away now. But my brother and I were brought up as mixed race children in a village in Hertfordshire where there were very few brown-skinned people, and so consequently we sort of had. This is in the early '60s. I was born in '62. We had all different kinds of reaction to that. And some of that was as benign, if you want to call it that, as people stopping in the street and literally staring as we walked by. My mother was blonde, green-eyed. My father was, very brown skin,
dark hair, and
he was Indian. He looked Indian. So we were an oddity, and that was for grown-ups. And then for children, there were obviously some kids who thought, because we were different, that
you could make fun, pick on, and racism.
So that resulted in some form of you'd call it abuse these days, or bullying, and that would either be verbal or some form of psychological, often physical. The most extreme thing that happened to me was one boy at the school started trying to strangle me with my own tie in a woodwork lesson.
Wow. And
the woodwork teacher was at the back taking bets with the kids to see what would happen next. That's the kind of, that's as absurd and as crazy as it gets. So I was very fortunate, however, that when I entered the workplace, for reasons that I just can't quite figure out, but as soon as I entered the workplace, all that skin, having a
The point
foreign
of difference.
surname, and as you say, point of difference, different colour skin,
Mm-hmm.
just suddenly seemed to vanish. And I was never knowingly aware of being, if you like, racially profiled or being excluded because of my skin colour and my name. I might have been excluded because people thought I was a blithering idiot. I was incompetent. I had no
Poor
knowledge
personal
or experience.
hygiene. Yeah.
A range of different
Different
things,
options
that
there.
could have
Yeah.
been excluded
Yeah.
on very, very fair grounds. But I never experienced that in the workplace. So although my childhood was
Not easy.
challenging,
Yes.
for 10 years, 5 to 15
Yeah.
roughly. My adult life, from that perspective, I've only ever had one incident, which occurred at a bar, and some guy decided that he didn't like the look of me, and and was rather obnoxious. But other than that,
Yeah, it's been better.
I've been okay. But the opportunities to work with inclusive employers, fundamentally is about making a difference. And if I help them grow, the way I talk about performance for us is that it's a coin with two sides. So on one side, you've got financial performance, and on the other side, you have impact.
Yeah.
And it's really trying to make sure that these two things work in lockstep together.
And grow together.
Yeah. So it can't be one that leads the other.
No.
If you haven't got a
Profit.
commercial business, you can't,
justify the inclusion and inclusivity.
You
But
can't
if you can't,
sustain it.
and you can't increase the inclusivity, then why are you in business to make profit?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Certainly. So the other thing I've learned about that part of the world, from a business point of view, is that inclusive employers is, interesting enough, it's in the minority of companies working around training and consulting in that whole space, because typically organizations are working around one protected characteristic. Stonewall being, one of the best examples of that.
Of course.
Supporting the LGBTQ plus community. So for inclusion, everybody has a seat at the table. That's that's what we fight for.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking while you were talking about, you saying about the benign sort of, let's call it racism, because it was, or the exclusion. I think sometimes if you're walking down the street and someone avoids you or doesn't say anything, looks shocked, and not just in racism, but in any sort of prejudice, that can be just as cutting as verbal abuse or physical abuse. That sense of not belonging.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I suppose one of the things that it ended up doing for me, there's an old-fashioned expression of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and in that sense, being more self-sufficient, being okay being in my own company, that actually turned out to be very good training. So when you become a CEO, or even as many chair people will tell you,
it can be lonely.
It can be very lonely in those roles. So actually, in many ways, psychologically, that sort of was my training ground.
Fantastic. Well, okay, let's get into it. There's lots of questions that I want to ask you about your opinion on being on all these different boards, your experience. But let's go straight into inclusivity, DEI. What are the benefits of being inclusive and having a wide range of different individuals working in an organization? Give me the pitch. Come on, John.
Give me the pitch.
Why should, because there will be lots of people watching this who work for organizations. Why should they have a more open approach?
And there would be different voices in my head in terms of how to respond to that. Some of which would be
diverse voices.
Well, some of which would be, why does that question need to be asked? So you start really with that, which is, well, why would inclusion need to be a thing? And that's I think quite a powerful point, which is that if we're an inclusive society, then actually we're not asking whether we need to be inclusive or not. So I think that's pretty key in terms of fundamentally understanding, so what is inclusion? Inclusion is what it says on the tin. Everybody around the table is included. You're not looking for reasons to exclude or to include. But in terms of see, again, you've got, broadly speaking, 2 or 3 different lenses that you could look at that question. One is the sort of moral and social purpose that says, well, everybody can be around the table apart from that person there. That there are many people that might say, I agree, but there would be as many, and hopefully more people, that would say, I disagree. Everybody has a seat at the table. So so you've got the moral sense, you've got the social sense, which is that culturally we are a better society or a better environment or a better group of people if we have if we are inclusive, if anybody is able to become part of whatever activity we're doing. Then you've got the commercial lens, which is SFW, so flaming what if we are inclusive, what does that really mean from a bottom line perspective? And again, there are different parts to that. One is if you're an employer, then your employer brand is represented by the level of inclusion that you represent as an employer. And so if you're saying we're not inclusive as an employer, then essentially in your employer brand, you're saying you can come and work here, but you can't, and neither can you. So therefore, for employers that want to be competitive, they have to attract the best talent. But if they are exclusive or excluding, then of course they are limiting, the talent pool they can draw people from. That also reflects in terms of their customers. So again, is it important to their customers and their supply chain that they're inclusive? In some cases, they might argue it's not. It's not it's not important. I would argue it always has to be. And there are many commercial studies, that'll be carried out by business schools, by the consulting firms, McKinsey, for example, that would show evidence that those companies that are inclusive attract better talent and grow faster. So then you're starting to look at the kind of bottom line
and
other aspects of that, of course, include retention. So if the business has a sort of shop window that says, oh, we are inclusive, but you arrive and find that actually the company supports practices where there are microaggressions or lack of inclusive behaviors,
they're not going to stay long
then
enough.
of course they are going to leave. And again, that provides a cost.
Yeah.
So from a financial perspective, you do start to see that there's a wear and tear on profits, on balance sheet, on cash, and fundamentally on shareholder value or the enterprise value if it's a public sector body or a not-for-profit organization. The third lens is then around the what's effectively now called cognitive diversity. And again, it's another sort of form of study which says that if you have people in the room who may on the surface appear to be diverse, but are all thinking in the same way. So a good example of that is a company that employs people from the top 25 universities. They must have a degree from top 25 universities. They've got to have certain grades, probably middle class, and therefore, even though they may have different ethnicity or different gender,
the same lived experience.
They have very similar lived experience, same values, same outlook on life, and the same form of education, same life experiences. So consequently, they think and act the same way. And that lack of cognitive diversity is something that can really generate a cost. The cost isn't always realized immediately. So you're not seeing examples where you point to that and say, oh, that's because we didn't have cognitive diversity.
But there's a lack of maybe thinking outside the box. You think in the same way then?
Absolutely.
The way I was, so Ignys, we have, it's very what we call neurospicy. We don't.
I love that.
No one has some may have a diagnosis, but clearly, I can tell, I can recognise my own. We have a lot of people who, are certainly on the spectrum. Some are rollerblading across the spectrum, but they think differently to other, to each other, but also to other organisations. So when we come to find a solution for our customers, I'm not doing a sales pitch because I don't like to do it on this podcast. As an example, they can think outside the box. And there's actually a case study. One of our customers, Howler, they'll come to us with a problem, an idea. We'll get a couple of our engineers around the room. Within a couple of hours, they'll have a different outlook. And again, because of cognitive diversity.
There was two examples just to support that point, if I may. One was I very fortunate again to meet a founder of an advisory firm that only employed people across the spectrum, and it is a sort of classic, sort of lay person's view of neurodiversity and an application, in that they carried out different forms of due diligence around technology and around software. Now, when they set the company up, they were fortunate enough to get funded through an early stage venture fund set up by GCHQ. And so they were also screened to provide, sort of services into the intelligence community. And the team, as part of the screening, passed every test with flying colours, to the point that they were then given a test from the bottom of the sort of the drawer at the back of the shop that nobody, been dusted off. No one solved this. In 9 years, it hadn't been solved, and they solved it.
Wow.
Took them 6 weeks, but they solved it. They broke the code that nobody had done in 9 weeks. So that's one example of that capability. The second is going back to my point about the price you pay for lack of cognitive diversity in a group of people that are performing, whatever that performance, however that performance is manifests itself. And it was an example given by Matthew Syed in one of his books. And it was related to 9/11, and it was about the CIA, and essentially it was about the profiling of their talent, their employee base, which was quite narrow, and consequently didn't include anybody that had a cultural perspective of what was going on in the Middle East, a historic perspective.
Couldn't understand why they would want to be attacked in the way that they were, and
also couldn't recognize the threat of a small group of people as opposed to the sort of mass military machine. And
obviously never seen Star Wars either. The rebels destroyed the Empire.
I mean, clearly they like the Star Wars
and the Force.
As the Force. So no. But he makes the point that the CIA, recognized that one of the things they needed to do was change the filters with which they were both attracting and hiring talent. Because consequently, if they continued to hire in a certain mold, they would isolate themselves from, the development that was going on around the rest of the world. So that would be a classic case of a lack of cognitive diversity leads to a limited amount of thinking
and huge consequences.
Huge consequences.
Fantastic. I want to move on to your involvement in women's sports, but before I do, you were talking about society impact of diversification.
Yes.
My two biggest things that I think of an inclusive society, one is the gene pool. The smaller you have a gene pool genetically, we were talking about dogs before, dog breeds, human breeds, the smaller the gene pool, the worse it gets. So the bigger the gene pool, the better, really. And also, the bigger the inclusivity, the better the food, right? I mean, bring in all different cultures and all different food. Those two alone.
You're talking to a foodie. So
fantastic. Well, we'll take that to a different podcast.
Yeah.
So women in sport, the Lions, the women's England football team, obviously had a huge impact. I think certainly over the last couple of years, people are re-engaging with the women in sport. Can you tell us a bit of your involvement, your mentoring in the women's rugby?
Yes. So again, it was by chance that my name had been put forward, and the background to the situation was that, as I understand it, the DTI had allocated a fund. I think it was about £150 million. Of quite a sizable fund,
Yeah.
which they wanted to use to promote the commercialization of women's sport on the basis that the more financially successful women's sport is, the more sustainable it is, and also the better equipped it is to continue to grow.
Yeah.
So that was kind of
Self-fueling machine.
absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, I think it's very hard to argue with that when you look at sport.
Success recently, yeah.
So so they then commissioned Deloitte to set up a mentoring program to support the female leaders in women's sport. And I was put forward as somebody as a potential mentor, which was very very honoured about, and I was matched to Sarah Massey, who is the managing director of the Women's Rugby World Cup, who is a force of nature. She is an astonishing woman. The thought of she creates world class events, and the thought of you sort of have passport, have suitcase, will travel, and you take your family to somewhere where they're going to run the Commonwealth Games, and broadly speaking, you're the first person into the office to say, and now make it happen. And the thought of that cripples me with fear and anxiety personally. But for Sarah, would put a smile
On
on
her face, the challenge and the opportunity,
So it's been my pleasure, and I've learned a huge amount from the mentoring process. It has been two-way, and I hope that I've been able to give some value to her as well.
So you're leading on to the next question. So you got a lot from her. Is that why you mentor, or why do? I mean, you're a really busy man. I mean, we had to organise this. This isn't a criticism. We had to reorganise this quite a lot of times to get you here. You don't have to apologise. It's our pleasure. You work on a lot of boards. Why take the time to mentor? What did you get out of it, John?
But firstly,
and why should other people get out of it?
A quick shout out to Natasha, my colleague. Who
organised this. Natasha has
my
been
time
brilliant.
So
she does.
Well done, Natasha. So in terms of why and what I get out of it, personally, I think it's a privilege for another person to say, I would value your time and I value your advice. The key thing there is making sure that if it's a true mentoring as opposed to being a shoulder to cry on or an ear to bend,
or someone to do all the work for,
or somebody that says, well, here's all your answers, that you've got a sense of, well, what is it I can do to help you with? And there are times when maybe I'm not, that the right person, and I'll recommend somebody else. But broadly speaking, I find mentoring just really enriching for me as a person. I think it's very educational. I think it stretches me. It forces me to think about other people in other situations, and that can only be a good thing in terms of building empathy, building up your sort of almost your case study bank, more stories of the situations people have found themselves in. Often, if someone's seeking a mentor, it's often because they are struggling with something, and so it's very rare, I think, that people come off the back of a major success and say, "Oh, I know what I need right now. I need a mentor." It's normally when
the chips are down,
or just isn't happening, or they're feeling imposter syndrome, or are struggling with one thing or another, and therefore the mentoring need becomes more sort of important, and that also is another part of this, that if you find that as a mentor, essentially you're just having a chat, that's good, of course, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the value between the two of you
needs to be
is no longer that you are sort of, in my view, you're providing a mentoring.
So is it easy to know when to step away, or is it sometimes difficult to know when to step away?
Great question. Let me think about that for a second. Is it easy or is it hard? I think it's case by case, to be fair, Neil.
Okay.
I do. Yeah, I'm just
You don't have to name names.
no. I'm just thinking about the situations I'm involved in now. I think they do come to a bit of a natural end. I mean, in Sarah's case, it's the Women's Rugby World Cup. You know, that will end. With regards to supporting her post the Rugby World Cup, that's very much dependent upon her. You know, if she said, "John, I really appreciated your time and your support and advice. I'd be delighted to support her in, you know, whatever challenge she has next." But alternatively, you know, I'd feel completely okay with her saying, "That's been great, really helpful for what I was trying to do, you know, in this particular challenge." And you know, let's go and have a beer sometime, or a glass of wine, or a shandy, or whatever, you know,
whatever it is,
a cup of coffee. But yeah, nice to stay in touch, but we don't need to carry on with that. And sort of slightly more. And the other thing about, you know, mentoring is typically, you know, that differentiates it from a chat is it's normally scheduled. So that's another sort of rough indication as to whether, am I really mentoring here, or am I just
Feeling,
you know, or someone's just picking up the phone and going, "I've got a problem." In which case, you're sort of more, you're more kind of being a friendly ear to bend.
Yeah, I can see why organisations will be drawn to you. Obviously, you've been honoured to be given lots of different positions. What draws you to a business?
What draws me to a business? Broadly speaking, it's a few key things, but chemistry is always going to be a huge part, whatever else is going on. If you haven't got the chemistry there, then naturally that tends to feel like quite hard work. So regardless of anything else, there has to be chemistry, I think. Secondly, from my perspective, I've got to believe that I can add value. So if I don't think I can add value, again, I'm very happy to say, you know, talk to Neale or Mark or somebody. You know, here's somebody who really can help you. So I have to feel like I can.
Which is a value in itself.
Thank you. Well, no, thank you. And I think the third thing then is, you know, you've got to have some degree of excitement for whatever the adventure is going to be, because obviously you're going to commit time to that. I've been just, you know, blessed, lucky, if that's if you want to put it in that way, that in the last 5 years, through accident rather than design, I found myself being involved in those companies that are trying to do something good, and they're moving the needle on social impact. So what I've found is that working with companies that are profit for purpose, profits with purpose, it no longer feels quite like work. So this is a bit of a revelation for me, because I'm 63 in July. And so if you can imagine, you know, you're sort of, came to the end of a sort of 20-year career as a CEO, 5 exits under my belt, 6 in fact. And sorry about that. And you're looking for something that gives you inspiration. Yeah. And as a CEO, you know, you're the person driving yourself. You're trying to drive the business. You're trying to bring other parties along with you, shareholders, obviously, and investors being a key part of that. So the emotional price you pay for leading in that way is huge, and it's cumulative. And after 20 years, I have to say, you know, I was really, really thoroughly drained and
emotionally exhausted.
Yeah, I think to a degree, and I suspect, you know, many other CEOs might feel the same at times in their career. They're also very, very good at regenerating. Almost like in a video game, you know, they can sort of,
or a Time Lord, just sort of,
that's right. Another different scar.
Another fate, yes.
But you know, they do have very powerful. They've got great powers of regeneration. Sure. But even so, after 20 years, you know, you do find yourself.
There's only so many times you can regenerate.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm very lucky that today I work across several companies, most of which are focused on having a positive social impact on the world. And that can include patient health, for example, in healthcare, which is really the sector I've been most involved in for the last 25 years. And yeah, like I said, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not thinking about work. I'm thinking about what is it that I can do that's going to, coming back to that coin, help improve financial performance, but also improve impact. And that has made me feel young again. It's probably the best way to describe it.
Do you think as well, sort of coming not to an end of a career, but to a certain you've had a chunk of time, and now you're looking to the next sort of 20 years, maybe more, maybe less, that you want to give something back, that social impact has been more prevalent later on?
I think the giving something back is something I felt that I was doing through the mentoring and support as a leader, building teams where I'm developing people in their careers. I've always felt that I was giving, but maybe giving is not the right word, but actually being a positive influence on other people's lives. But often that would be people very close to me. And then more indirectly as a CEO, it would be about patient care. It would be about trying to make sure that those patients that interacted with our clinicians had a better outcome as a result of our clinicians and the work that they did. So there was always that other sort of larger extended impact point. But I would say that the sense of wanting to give something back now, it's an interesting question. I think I've always had it, so I don't feel like it's something new. And therefore it's not something that I think about a great deal, because I feel it's something I sort of instinctively do. I like to help people if I can.
That's great. DEI politically is getting quite a knock with the change in political climate. Obviously, we've got a very right American president. Reform Party has now got several MPs. I think Nigel Farage said anyone, when he got elected, anyone with the title DEI supporter, it better watch out. And it turns out there is no one with that job title in his, council. Well-researched Nigel Farage. Obviously, with no sort of political bias, are you seeing that impact real world now? And where do you see inclusivity in the workplace sort of in the next sort of like 5 and 10 years?
Wow. You're asking me that at the end? So I'll try and be brief.
No, you take as long as you want.
That's
I think it's an important question.
Well, I think it's massively important. It really is. You're looking at the news today, and every day, in fact, it's a feature right now. To be successful in politics now appears to be more about messaging and perception rather than values and truth. It appears to be, and I'm not the expert. I know, politics is not really something I'm hugely strong at and spend a huge amount of time, sort of
studying and
exactly.
analyzing.
Yes, so I'm trying to be more in the real world of
which your lived experience. Which is
So my sense is that in order to gain support, and we have to come on to the question of, well, why is that support following certain messaging? But it appears that the right-wing politicians, as we've seen before in decades past, can gather support at times of difficulty.
Through populism, simple messaging.
Absolutely. That they're to blame.
Yes.
So I think
that famous photo, isn't there, of Rupert Murdoch, where he's got a big pile of cookies. He's got a middle class or working person with one cookie. Then he's got an immigrant saying, "Oh, he's trying to steal your cookie. He hasn't got anything." And that kind of using fear.
Absolutely. So I think that DEI as a phrase is now being weaponized.
Like woke.
Like woke. So the question is, what does it really mean? It doesn't really matter, because if it's a word that can trigger a certain response, and as a politician you want to create that response, then you're going to use it a bit like a bullet fired, at a target. You're trying to hit a certain target to trigger a certain emotion and a certain response. And words are powerful, hugely powerful, and it is at the moment one of those terms that actually is incredibly powerful at polarizing people, broadly speaking, to those who disagree and those who agree. So I think that I think a natural response to that is to start thinking about, well, if it's just the label that is being weaponized, but not the principle of the issue, why can't organizations continue to support the principle and do something different regarding
the labeling, the message?
Indeed. And you then come on to the question, well, why would they not defend DEI as a label? And I think that what we're seeing is that there is more pressure being brought politically against that as a value system. And so employers, and this is in government, this is in charities, sport, as well as business and in education. It is across every walk of life that politics sits, and therefore can be influential in a positive or a negative way. And for employers within those different walks of life, who are trying to be inclusive, they're trying to do so in a way where they themselves are not triggering from their stakeholders a similar polarization if that word has now been weaponized against a value system that they believe in. So that sounds a little bit fancy, and I apologize.
No. I think you hit the nail on the head, because I can think of certainly extended family members, and I can think people in social circles who would say it's all gone woke, or there's or DEI, or what a waste of time and money. However, they would be aghast at the idea of homophobia or racism or someone with disabilities not being able to get a job. So they'll, it's like, it's a red flag to a bull. They'll go, oh, it's too woke, it's too DEI, but they'll support someone who needs help.
Absolutely. And I do think it's an instinct. I think it's an instinctive human reaction. I think that, we're sort of, we're social creatures, and in order to be social, you do need to help others in order to receive help yourself. So I feel the idea of not helping people seems to fly against that sort of almost a biological aspect of what we are as human beings. And then obviously you've got the cultural and moral and the commercial and the other layers on top of that. But I think labeling and messaging and weaponization of terms is something that is now very much part of today's politics. And I think the way in which employers, again, across the different spectrums of activity are responding is that there is a degree of polarization. In my experience, what one is seeing is that there are some companies who feel that they're probably being forced to having to almost relabel that support and activity, but are persistent in doing it.
A rebrand.
Thank you. It speaks to
marketeer.
The second form are those that have just gone, screw you. Now, I am standing for what if fire the bullets at me, and they're going to bounce off, because I shall not be moved. A bit like Gandalf on the bridge.
Thou shalt not pass.
Thou shalt not pass. That's right. So you've got the Gandalf reaction. You've got the sort of slightly more, for want of a better phrase, a reaction where people are sort of
willing to move a little bit. The Frodo reaction.
You're out of the line of fire. Anyway, so and then you've got those people who may feel that that for their reasons, they support the agenda that sits behind the weaponization of those phrases. And therefore, for those people, and by people I'm talking about employers, actually this is a call to arms for them to now come forward and say, I never really believed in it. It's not something I want to do, or we are going to do, and therefore we are going to declare ourselves as being against, we're in favor of this idea that this is.
They'll call themselves no nonsense and all the rest of it.
So and then of course there are different shades in between, and then right out at the end over here, of course, are those that say, there can only be one type of person, and if you're not that type of person, what you don't really register as human. You don't register as a person. You certainly don't register as somebody sometimes that even should be alive.
Right.
So the right at the far end is that huge level of deadly level of extremism.
I think there's enough hope. There's enough people willing to bend to make it work and move things forward.
I do. Yeah, I absolutely do. Yeah, and I see that every day. I'm an optimist, and I do believe in the human spirit. So yeah, I do believe that people are good. Bad press sells. So it's much easier to promote a story about something horrible than something good.
A reaction's a reaction.
A reaction's a reaction. There's some study about why our brains are wired like that for survival purposes.
It's why people like to gossip, I'm sure.
I think that there's that aspect as well. But so I still see a huge amount of good in the world. And what's really inspiring for me are those people that have said, thou shalt not pass, or we're going to keep, if you want us to relabel this, that's fine, but you are not changing our values, and you are not changing our support, and you are not changing the way in which we're going to treat people around us. You don't want us to use this phrase, that's fine.
So obviously you have a lot of recent experience with AI. There's a lot of fear around AI about taking jobs. It can write copy very quickly. It can create media, videos, content. You're all about inclusivity, people. What do you think the impact is of AI? Is it going to exclude people going forward, or do you think the space for everyone can be used as a force for good? What's your hot take, John?
If I may, a tiny bit of background to Mindset AI. The founder, Barry Hadfield, this is probably his 5th or 6th company that he's founded. So he is a technologist.
He has experience.
He has experience. He's always been a programmer. He gets up early in the morning to code. That's his way of
Java in hand. I'm
that's
sure.
it. Yeah,
I know the type.
And he's built other AI companies very successfully, and so he's somebody that I personally regard as an AI expert. So I'm hugely privileged to just be in his presence and that of his teams as well, and that also includes some people who are really at the sort of bleeding edge of in particular large language models. So Mindset AI focuses on what's called LLMs, but otherwise more commonly known as ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, for example.
Gemini, etc.
Gemini, thank you. Yeah. And the way in which so this is the kind of idiot's guide to AI based on what I understand. So with the internet, what the internet did was it created a place where you had a lot of information, and then but you had trouble searching it, and there were some search engines quite early on, which you may remember. Go Fish.
Go Fish, Ask Jeeves,
Ask Jeeves, absolutely. And then suddenly out of nowhere comes Google. And suddenly Google is around the world, and it was,
which is now just a search term. I'm going to Google it.
I'm going to Google it. But like I'm going to Hoover or
exactly.
Right. So What we saw with the internet was, this kind of step change, a huge sort of pace of change in a very short period of time, culminating in obviously in Google, dominating the search space. But that's been the status quo then for a number of years, where search actually has been the most used capability of or user requirement for the internet.
Yeah, of course.
And what large language models have done is actually add on to that a second capability, which is that you can ask. So you could say, what do you think? Or can you tell me about? And so that's really been the second sort of phase of, I call it a revolution.
Yeah.
But again,
it's giving something back as well, isn't it? So it's the first phase, search engine, get the information. What's your opinion on this information? Can you help me digest?
Yes.
Can you help me create based on? Yeah,
absolutely. And of course, that's being facilitated also by voice technology, Alexa and all that sort of thing. But you've got this ask, and then that's that capability. Then with agent-based AI, you've got do. I would now like you to not only search, I want you to tell me, rank the information, or create something meaningful from that information based on the following parameters.
Yeah.
And I now want you to prepare for me a document that I can use for other people. It's a perfect example. Yeah. Could be a marketing presentation.
It could be, or some data or whatever, or a bit of code or whatever that could do.
So that's the ask and then do. And then agentic AI is where you can start to program agents to actually not just do, but to carry on doing. So for example, in a particular area of research or a piece of information or something, for example, around inclusion, if you were gathering information about inclusion and you wanted to prepare reports around that, with agentic AI, what you're going to say is, I want you to carry on gathering information and updating what you have created for me.
Yeah.
And I want you also to flag to me if there is something that looks as if it's escalating, and it could be by individual, it could be by theme, it could be by country, by publication, by political party. I want you now to be intelligent about engaging with what's going on in the world and then coming back to me and telling me what's going on. So that seems to be the sort of next step. The other part of that is what's referred to as hyper-personalization, which is where the AI and agents and agentic AI is now working exclusively for you and therefore delivering to you hyper-personalized content and information. So that's the sort of journey with large language models. And that's very much part of what Mindset provide. And so when I look at that and think about the power of that and the applications, it is sort of Pandora's box. We don't quite know what's going to be good, what's going to be bad. There's a number of people involved in looking at the bias in AI that's already there. We see stories about AI hallucinating and various other challenges with that. But I think these are, if you like, factors that will exist with anything, broadly speaking, that's new technology. The bias issue is the one that worries me probably most, hallucinating. I'm not technical enough to know if that can be addressed. But the bias issue does worry me, because at the end of the day, how are you going to remove that from AI? One of the things that they had to do with the Hubble telescope when it was launched into space was actually it was cross-eyed. So the vision that came through this amazing piece of technology was all blurry. And despite the fact you had this again bleeding edge technology launched into space with a view of seeing into the further into the universe than we've ever seen before, and then they turn it on, and it's myopic.
I bet the call out time for that guy to go and fix it is
so
astronomical.
What they had to do was put another lens in front. They effectively gave the telescope glasses, and as a result of that, it could then see. So I wonder if there's something equivalent to that that can be put at the
On
front
top
end
of for the bias. Yeah.
for the bias, for example. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's again, it will be a reflection of humanity in terms of how it's used.
Yes.
So will AI make our world more complicated, make it easier? Will it threaten jobs? Will it make life more fun for people? I think it will do all of those things.
All the above.
The challenge is trying to make sure that enough of the good people are at the forefront of that.
Sure.
To help ensure that it does more
Good than
more,
bad.
more gives more help than not.
Good. Well, thank you very much. Here's to the good in people, the human spirit, the wide genetics pool, and the better food.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Neale. I'm the host of Another Bright Spark podcast. It's a podcast hosted by Ignys. Who are Ignys, you're probably asking? Well, Ignys are an ethical engineering company. We're based here in Nottingham. We have a bunch of really talented hardware engineers and a equally talented bunch of software engineers. We work in the electronic space, and throughout that space we meet lots of interesting people. So we thought it would be a great opportunity to get these people, sit down and chat to them and have a podcast.
The fact that we want that physical object, and we still go through the process of putting it in, needle on the thing and scratchy sound, but we still get to enjoy that. There is something fundamentally tactile.
I'll read one comment, or one will just come up on the app, and it'll just sort of sticky, because it's real criticism. That's the thing, and as a content creator, or YouTuber, it can't be anything but personal.
But giving people the freedom to be able to post content and actively encouraging them to get involved in it has a lot more success.
We used to say it would be 3 to 4% of a graduating class at university might think about doing entrepreneurship, and only half of them, if that, would try. Now you've got 25-30% of a class thinking about it.
And what you end up is a battle of the bots. You've got them using AI to try to do something, and me saying to my AI, so suddenly we've now got bot wars. AI bot wars.
Hosted by Craig Charles.
Exactly.
We have some great guests with some amazing stories coming up. You don't want to miss out. If you've got an idea of a guest for us, let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, make sure you're subscribed. You really don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching.